Hello, I'm Patrick Gaffney, and I will be discussing my social injustice issue, which is the cost of college tuition. Pretty much everyone in our critical issues class knows about the high cost of college tuition just because we go to a private Catholic university, and typically Creighton University has had a relatively high tuition in the past. And more students around the country in general are being denied access to receiving a higher education, and this is mainly because of the high cost of college tuition. And according to an article, High School and Beyond, it reported that only 11% of students from low-income families go on to achieve a higher education. And this is an injustice issue because while it is really vital that we do receive a college education, it's become to the point where it's kind of impossible to receive it, while it's yet again vital to have a higher degree to go on to pursue a career. Now I'm going to go switch to how this issue has affected families, specifically low-income families. Not only has the cost of tuition affected, like in general, just the cost of going to classes has taken its toll on low-income families, but other expenses as well, such as room and board, having a meal plan, and having transportation to school, to home, or from home to school. And according to another article, College Tuition Pinches Poor Families, it reported that for families with an income of about $19,100 saw a 6% rise in tuition, as opposed to families who make $136,000 in income saw only a 1% rise. And as well as the higher costs of tuition, there has been a decrease in funding and financial aid from federal and state governments. A statistic that I found is that the funding for financial aid or scholarships has gone down since the year 2001. And a primary effect of this is that this has led to the higher student debt or having to pay off student loans. And I do not think this is fair because there are many students who are bright and intelligent and oftentimes miss out on the opportunity to receive the career they want to receive because of the fact that tuition has been so high, and it's kind of unfair for these students with low-income families and low income to be denied access to that, and that's something that I wish that needs to be changed in the near future. Now I'm going to shift over to the effects of high tuition. The first aspect I'm going to focus on is how it applies to student debt or student loans. Personally, I know many family members and friends that have graduated college 15, 20 years ago, and they're still having to pay off some of the tuition and debt that they had to pay to receive it around 15 years ago, which comes to show that it's become a problem for a while and it needs to be addressed and solved. And a statistic that I found for this is from the year 1989 to 2008, the number of students who use student loans increased from 19% to 35%. So it's become kind of more of a trend lately, but it was in the past that many people have had to use student loans. And it just comes to show that it is a problem and it needs to be addressed and needs to be solved. There are often times where students, while they're receiving the education, take out too little of a loan. And at that point, they're having to pay for the tuition while they're in school. And that becomes a problem because they're going to constantly have to make money or have a job in order to maintain paying that high cost because they took out too little of a loan. Overall, student debt is a problem and one of the primary effects of having high tuition. And if we lower the tuition and find a way to lower tuition, I feel like student debt and student loans would slowly diminish and possibly go away. Another effect of having high tuition is the social aspect and balancing of a personal life. Oftentimes, students get on-campus jobs or off-campus jobs in order to pay for their tuition while they're in school. And this isn't really uncommon because I know a lot of friends and family that have on-campus and off-campus jobs to help pay for their tuition. One of the primary sources I found was a journal from the Wall Street Journal, actually, and it talked about whether attending college was worth it or not. And they interviewed a man who graduated from Stanford University, and he discussed that he had to work a 20-hour job, which was on campus, and he also worked an off-campus job in order to make money for his tuition. And they interviewed him, and they asked him if it was worth it or not to go through that, and he said it was because he was actually receiving a quality education, but he pretty much told the Wall Street Journal that he did not want to go through having to work many hours outside of class time in order to pay for that tuition. He wanted to use that money he made for possibly other expenses other than paying for class. But yet again, this is possible. This is basically the harsh reality for students. Either you work a job and pay for your education, or you don't work a job and don't have an education. So it's kind of become the harsh reality to have a job for many students in order to pay for their tuition. Now I'm going to shift to how the local and state federal governments have caused this issue to somewhat get worse. And one of the primary reasons it's been causing this issue to get worse is because the federal government and state governments have sort of cut down on funding certain schools, and that decrease in funding has caused the tuition to go up. So in reality, the state and local federal government have not done anything to help this issue in some cases, they've actually made it worse. So the local, state, and federal governments need to work on ways to improve how they fund schools and help the tuition costs go down. And now I'm going to shift over to some solutions that we have turned to in order to help address this issue. One of the primary solutions is junior colleges. And this is very popular for students with low income. A statistic that I found is from 1979 to 2000, the U.S. saw a 40% increase in students who go to junior college. And from that, there was also another statistic that found that 45% of incoming freshmen actually go to junior college or a community college of some sort. One advantage of going to junior college or getting an associate's degree in 2 years is it allows you to get general education classes out of the way for a cheaper cost. These students who go to these junior colleges or community colleges are receiving the same education and taking the same classes as many students in four-year universities, but in reality they're paying a lot less to achieve this sort of education, which in a way is really beneficial for people who choose junior colleges over four-year universities. And I feel like, in effect, this would affect enrollment rates for four-year universities. I feel like you give it a decade, and more students will turn to junior colleges and community colleges, just because of the price and how it's a lot cheaper. Another popular solution is the idea of apprenticeships, and this has become very popular in European countries, specifically Germany, Finland, and Switzerland. And a study showed, and they found that 97% of students there are 97% of students in Germany graduate high school, but only a third of them, of the 97, go on to receive a college education. And that's because a lot of them go on to do apprenticeships. And once again, an apprenticeship is where they're kind of taught certain material and gain experience for a certain job or career that they want to pursue. And one advantage of having an apprenticeship is that they avoid having to pay for common education. So they avoid having to pay for these education classes because of the fact that they also gain professional experience and experience to that certain career. And this just comes to show that education is not really originated in the classroom. A lot of students go on and learn more effectively in the environment, in a professional environment. And I feel like this could be a good solution to solving higher tuition. And finally, four-year universities are doing things to help students. They understand that college is expensive nowadays, and they're taking action to help these students. And one example that I found is actually in the Omaha area. College of St. Mary is actually reducing their sticker price on like their brochures or college ads to help attract students, mainly from lower income and middle class families, to attend their school. And I found in the Omaha Herald that they have dropped their tuition by 33%. Their sticker price originally was $29,954, but is now $19,950. And yet again, this is to appeal to the lower class and middle class families to show that, hey, we are a university that is affordable for everybody. And yet again, it's more difficult for private schools such as College of St. Mary and Creighton because they receive a lot less funding than state schools from the government, whether it's state or federal government. And even though these state schools aren't even receiving that much money, private schools are receiving a lot less. So yet again, we're all enrolled in a private university that has high education, and everyone in this school differs on how they pay it, whether it's through having a full ride, taking out a big loan, or just having their parents help pay for it, and they pay for part of it. Yet again, on-campus and off-campus jobs are beneficial for paying for this tuition. And in general, high tuition costs is a problem for many middle-class and lower-class families, and it needs to be addressed and solved through these solutions that I've talked about. I mean, if you think about it, there could be a kid that comes from a low-income or middle-class family that has the potential to find, let's say, a cure for cancer, but won't have the opportunity because they don't have the financial or stability of their families to help pay for college tuition. Thank you.